Hi, and welcome to the Traits of a Prepared Engineering Graduate video series. My name is Dr. Bill Fortney, and I'm going to be your host. These traits were developed by working with many engineering managers, and they represent what these managers see in their successful engineers. The traits are what they look for when hiring an engineer. Now, if you're familiar with the book Preparing for a Career in Engineering, you'll notice the first trait is all about what you know. Approach your engineering classes knowing that you'll be expected to use the knowledge from them later, and you'll develop this trait. The other traits, they deal with who you are, and they're going to require intentional and deliberate action from you if you're going to develop them. It's going to take work, but you can do that. And this video series, The Traits of a Prepared Engineering Graduate, is designed to be a tool to help you understand the traits, to help you develop the traits, and understand the importance of the traits. So today, in this video, Ramsey Davis is going to share two stories that will, one, allow you to see the traits in action, and then two, let you see firsthand what will be expected of you as an engineer. So listen, learn, and be deliberate about being a prepared graduate.
Good afternoon. I'm Ramsey Davis. It's nice to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with y'all. It's a great honor to be here. I am in charge of the Harrier airframe, the airframe system. So it's my job to manage and keep that airframe safe for every Harrier in the world, no matter where it's at. So like I said, I wasn't the best student, and what I mean by that, I was not the smartest kid in the class. My grades were not straight A's by any stretch of the imagination. I was good at statics, but I was not good at dynamics. So I was good at statics because things are stable, they're still. The math is easy for me. If it's moving, it becomes very difficult for me because I can't wrap my mind around it. So I'll tell you a little story. I got into dynamics and took my first test. I got a 14 on that first test. That's 14%, if that tells you anything about what I was up against. And that was very early on in my student career, so I was scared to death. But what I did was I said, okay, I've got to obviously do better than this. So I started going to every office hour. I took advantage of everything that I could get my hands on and ended up at least getting through that class. So if you're not the smartest, don't let that scare you. Just know that you've got to work hard to get by certain classes along the way, because they're not all going to be easy. So just be on the lookout. What classes are you going to struggle with, and just go at those a little differently than the ones that are come a little bit easier to you.
Yeah, let me ask you while you're on that subject.
Yeah.
The classes that are hard, can you just ignore them because you'll never need them again?
No, you cannot. So let me tell you, that'll lead into what I do today. So today in my career, I'm a senior structures engineer. Statics, mechanical design come real easy, so I navigated towards that as a career path. It comes naturally to me. But it was amazing to me how often I got into a situation where I had to interact with moving parts. I am in charge of the Harrier airframe, the airframe system. So it's my job to manage and keep that airframe safe for every Harrier in the world, no matter where it's at. And there's in that Harrier, there's moving parts, there's electrical systems. So I struggle with electrical classes, I struggle with dynamics, but all that is in my system and I have to be aware of it. And it comes up every week. I've got to interact with other engineering fields that are coming at me with information. I have to be able to at least digest what they're telling me and understand what they're telling me so that I can take that back and make it work for me. And go back at them and say, hey, my structure needs to be able to do this or do that. So it's an interaction between two very different engineering skills, but have to come together to get the aircraft in the air successfully. We all have to do our part to keep it in the air. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And don't miss what he said, that he graduated from the program how many years ago? 6. And he just said he's responsible for what?
The airframe structure in the area, and
All of them, anywhere in the world.
Yep.
Yeah, see, that's going to be you sooner than you think.
It can be. It certainly can be if you work hard at it. Yeah. So to put it in perspective, I've got a couple stories that I like to share. On the screen is
You want me to play that?
yeah.
Yep, just
Yes.
click it. There you go.
All right. So on screen is a MEU, Marine Expeditionary Unit. This is the USS Baton. I was at the office in my junior summer. So between my junior year and senior year.
So it was
I
a
in the
normal
office.
flight day.
And this is what I
We were going
was
out
up
to
against.
replunge currency,
A little
flying
video
with the
here.
ship in the evening. There was nothing crazy about it. I took off, and as I was climbing away from the deck, I put my gear up, realized I had a gear malfunction, so I immediately pulled the power back, slowed the aircraft down so I wouldn't overspeed the landing gear. For a while, I flew by the ship, did an approach at 300 feet so he could see my landing gear and give me an idea of what was going on, and determined that my nose gear did not come back down. So I come in, and at this point, I've kind of forgotten that I don't have a nose gear. I'm just focused on landing. That's what I decided I had to do. So I'm at 20 feet stabilized, and I can't see the stool. I don't even know it's there. I didn't see it coming over the end of the ship. I looked for it. I remember looking for it and thinking, oh boy, this is going to get interesting. So I never saw the stool. So I go to idle. I remember my main gear hitting and all of a sudden my nose dropping, and it dropped more than I expected. But at that point, I was along for the ride. I don't remember feeling it bounce like it did on the videotape. I remember feeling it just kind of hit, and that was it.
So you'll see him bounce. Obviously, his nose gear failed, didn't come down. And that stool that he landed on buckles a frame, a critical frame, just behind that light gray nose cone. That frame is in charge of the pitch control, that hot nozzle out of the nose that keeps the pitch control. So we didn't have the video when we started this project. It was one afternoon in the summer. My boss comes to me late in the afternoon and says, hey, I need you to come take a peek at some emails. So what we were handed basically, like I said, I didn't have the video. What we were handed was basically forward deployment, aircraft's been damaged, nose cone is damaged, we need to come up with a repair. And failure is not an option because these guys they've only got 6 jets and they were in a hard way. So I took lead as a junior in college, and at the time I was scared. I didn't think I could do it. But I had a partner in crime, and he was really good at math. He could do structural analysis. He's now my senior engineer partner. There's 2 of us, me and him. So we sort of grew up together. What I had, what my boss at the time saw was a good problem solver and a good organizer. That's all he saw in me, and he knew that the other fella could do the math quicker than I could. So, Ramsey, you keep everything organized. Keep the math going. Know the math. Figure out the math. Check him. But you've got to come up with a design. You got to design a repair. You got to think of everything that it's going to need to have, because it's got to get on this ship in one package from start to finish that can be done on a ship with limited supplies. That was the problem that I was handed. I started working. I went to an old junk carrier that had a good frame in it and said, well, if this frame's buckled here, all I need is a little section, a new one. So I cut out that section and started designing the repair pieces to splice it together. We were limited on time, so on Wednesday of that week, I came up with that plan. Yep, we can do this. I need the repair pieces, but it's a complicated frame because it's in the airfoil and it's highly loaded. So I needed to make repair parts quickly. So I went to a partner at FRC and said, hey guys, we need to 3D scan this frame, build a form block, and stamp out some parts. So we did that. We got the form block designed on Thursday. Friday and Saturday, they made the parts. And on Monday, when I got back to work, the parts were made and I started gathering together all the hardware to fasten it together. And on Wednesday that same week, they said, we want you to go to the Baton and oversee the installation. So I don't know where the Baton is. It's deployed. That's all I know. I'm not supposed to know. I don't need to know. But I knew it wasn't right here in Morehead City. So I knew I was going somewhere off the wall. So I said, okay, I really don't think I'm the right guy. They said, nope, we want you to go. My boss said, you've done a good job. We want you to go. We know you can do it. Go. So a week later, I got all my parts. I shipped some of the parts, knowing that it would get there faster than I would. They could start messing with them. But some of the parts I put in my pocket and carried them with me on the commercial jet. And they flew me into Kuwait with an artisan that was going to put everything together. So I'm just the engineer. I don't get to play with the toys, not the real toys anyway. So they flew an artisan with me. So they put me on this V-22 with my stuff, and artisan headed for the U.S. Baton somewhere in the Gulf, the Persian Gulf. And I was really, really tired. I remember falling asleep. But I remember the V-22 sort of circling. I could feel the aircraft circling, so I knew we were close. And all of a sudden, the whole thing went straight down. And that crew chief tripped. She was tethered in, and she tripped. And I remember her looking at me right now as I was scared to death. I thought something was wrong, and she had a great big smile on her face. So she knew everything was okay. What was going on was a wartime landing. So they don't hover around. They don't fly around at like 50 feet when they're in the Persian Gulf. They're way up high, and they get over this ship, and that V-22 goes into hover mode, and she goes straight down just straight as she can go. And right before they get to the ship, she levels out and drops right on the deck. Done. Just that simple. So it was a great experience. I got to meet Captain Mahoney. We spent some time together. I lived on that ship for a month. It was only supposed to be 2 weeks. So while I was there, we did the repair. I did have to write some on-site engineering. Things didn't go exactly like we planned it, so we had to deviate a little bit. I wrote some engineering dispositions, some TIs, some temporary engineering instructions on the ship by myself. I didn't have any backup. I didn't have anybody right there. We're 12 hours away from my senior engineer at the time. So now while I was there, this thing failed, right? The nose gear failed, and there's an engineering investigation that gets kicked off. So I'm a structures engineer. I don't know anything about nose gears. I don't want to know anything about nose gears. I have no reason to know anything about nose gears. So my AVSE, my boss's boss, technical boss, sends me an email, hey, you're hands-on. We need you to run the engineering investigation because we just can't do it from afar, and we don't want to have to 4 months in this. Can you help us out? I don't know if I can, but I'll take a crack at it. So I started troubleshooting the gear with some very useful people. You know who they were? The actual maintainers. They know a lot of stuff about a Harrier. So I asked them simple questions. They got really frustrated with me sometimes, but that's okay. You know, I'm learning on the fly. So something so simple as paint in the wrong spot caused all this to happen. And so I typed up an email, hey, took some pictures. Here's what I found about this switch. Sent it off to my boss's boss. And he said, job well done. That's exactly what went wrong. The switch stuck. Didn't always stick, but every now and then it would stick. And it just stuck at the wrong time. So I sent back an email, well, how about if I fix the switch? If I sand everything up and get it back right, can we just reinstall this gear? He said, yeah, go ahead. Take a crack at it. So I sanded everything up, got everything cleaned up, rebuilt the nose gear switches, rebuilt the nose gear, put it back in the Harrier, and we started cycling. And yep, that fixed it. Everybody was real comfortable that we had found the problem, fixed the problem right there on the ship. And about a month later, I was ready to go home. Now, another scary part of this trip was there was a colonel. That colonel was always after me. He said, Ramsey, are we safe to fly yet? No, you're not safe to fly yet. When are we going to be safe to fly? When I tell you we're safe to fly. Just give me some time. So when I got ready to leave, I said, Colonel, I think I'm ready to go. He said, are we safe to fly? You are safe to fly. How do you know we're safe to fly? And I went through everything I basically went through with you. Your frame is fixed. I know it's fixed. Your pitch control is working. Your nose gear is working. I told him exactly what I'd done. Now, one of the questions is what scares you? A colonel scares me. He still scares me. I'm still scared when I get in front of a colonel. It's not a good feeling. When you get called to talk to a colonel, either you've done something really, really wrong, or they're looking for information and they don't want an I don't know unless you really don't know. And you better tell them, I don't know, but I'll find out. Give me a little bit of time. And that's exactly what I told him. I told him I don't know, right? A couple of weeks went by. I don't know. Give me some time. I don't know. Give me some time. But before I left, I told him, yep, you're safe. Your aircraft is ready. Have fun. Be safe. I'll see you when you get back to Cherry Point. And when I got home, it took me about 3 days to get home. It was a weekend when I got home. My nephew was born when I was in Chicago. And the following week on Wednesday, that same colonel emailed me and said, hey, we went flying. That was a good feeling. So I felt like a success. That was a junior summer experience. Does that pretty much tell you what you wanted to hear? You can do it. You'll find opportunities if you take it. So just because you're in school doesn't mean you're not going to have opportunities to impress someone along the way. Take it, take advantage of it, take it serious. It's your time to shine along the way. All right, one more quick story. WTI event. It's a live weapons training. Out in Yuma, they ship out Harriers out there to take training with everybody in his live fire, military, infantry, helicopters, everybody's flying around. It's a big deal. It takes a lot of planning. You get 6 Harriers, you're going to shoot stuff for a week or two, maybe even a month. So same thing, late one afternoon, hey, got something weird happen. On a live gun run, a Harrier blew up. What we're going to do? And when I say blow up, it went poof, and they didn't know why. I got back, all the doors were blowed off the thing. And they said, we want you to go out, you and a subsystems guy. We feel like it's either structures, something went wrong with the structure, or something went wrong with a subsystem. I said, okay, I'll take a crack at it. I'll go. By this time, I graduated. Felt a little more confident. So went out there. Colonel met me at the daggone gate and said, are we safe to fly? I just got here. I don't know. Give me some time. So I went up to that Harrier, and sure enough, all the heat shields on the inside of it, they'd removed the engine by the time I got there. All the heat shields were all deformed, and doors were all blowed off of her. And it didn't take me very long. I said, there's something going on with that heat shield right there. It's blowed the wrong way. It come from the outside of the aircraft. You would have thought that it would go it come from the outside towards the inside. It should have gone the other way. Something's going on with that heat shield. So I went and looked at all the guns, and that gun on that Harrier was different than all the others. It was all black down the outside of it. So I said, okay, something's going on here. So I went and talked to the pilot. I said, sir, what happened? He said, well, I went and pulled the trigger. I had a gun malfunction. I safed armed, flew back. Okay, all right, okay. How long did you hold that trigger? Normal shoot, 3 seconds. Okay. These guys are so regimented. You heard the pilot say, I didn't see the stool. I just landed where I always landed, right? These guys are trained. They just do the same thing over and over again. So I trusted him. He told me I made one single shot. They're supposed to have 2. So I said, okay, you made one single shot. You had a gun malfunction, went back. I went back to the ordnance, said, how many shots were fired? He said he shot the whole works, shot all of them, all 300 rounds. In 3 seconds, yep, there was not a single shot left. Okay, that's weird. So I went back to the pilot, are you sure about that 3 seconds? He said, yep, I know it's 3 seconds. I know it's 3 seconds. Okay, all right. So I went to that gun. I said, that gun overfired. I can't prove it yet, but I know something went wrong with that gun. So, okay, now I've got my fire. I know where that fire come from, that gun. Something's wrong with that gun. So then I started looking, okay, what else makes an explosion? I had to have fuel. So I went and tested some fuel cells inside the aircraft. I found one little leak, one little tiny leak. And I said, well, how did that fuel get to inside the aircraft? Because even that leak is supposed to go outside the aircraft. Well, right in one little corner of that drain, there's some sealant that's globbed over that and makes the drain all work. And there was a hole in that sealant. So, okay, now I've got my fuel, and I've got some vapor inside my fuel, my aircraft, right? And now I've got a gun outside the aircraft putting out a lot of fire because it's oversped. What's going on there? How did the fire and the fuel connect? Well, started looking around. There's one little hole for a handle on a door right underneath the gun. And that hole, that screw that they use for a handle to take the door on and off, was out. So I put together a critical chain of events that led no math, no experiments, no nothing, just logical chain of events, problem solving a very difficult, complex situation in 3 days. Here's how it happened. Your gun overfired. There's a hole in your aircraft. You should have had a screw right here to keep the fire outside the aircraft and the fuel in, and you had a fuel leak that you didn't take care of, and that's what happened. The fire ignited the fuel vapors inside your aircraft, and it went whew, and blowed off all the doors. So after 3 days, I went back to that colonel. I said, Colonel, your other aircraft are safe as long as you got that screw in the hole, you ain't got no fuel leaks, and your guns are all working right. Now, when I got back, that gun became a very heated discussion. From a guns perspective, there's a whole different engineering team that works on guns. From the guns perspective, it either fires or it don't. You pull the trigger, it fires, it's doing its job. So I had to have a very heated discussion with an engineer who kept telling me there's nothing wrong with that gun. It fired all the shots. And I kept telling him, yes, it did, sir. It fired all those shots, but it fired it so quickly that the fire was inside the aircraft. There had to be something wrong with that thing. He said, no, we're not doing an engineering investigation. There's nothing wrong with that gun. I finally said, I am going to my boss, and I'm going to make sure that that gun gets looked at. And that's exactly what I did. They tested the gun. Lo and behold, there was a solenoid failure in that gun, so that whatever the RPM from the engine was supposed to be regulated down, so the gun's always got 60 PSI instead of 250 PSI off the engine. That's what was going in that gun, was 250 PSI. And that's how that gun spud out 300 rounds in 3 seconds when it was only supposed to shoot out about 150. So I had to make sure that I had a good foundation, and I argued until I got my point across. I did not give up because I knew I was right, and I knew I was on a good foundation. I had the facts on my side. So another engineer, I really had to be respectful and just keep after him. Hey, please look at this. Please do your job and at least look at it. And I defended it and defended it and defended it until he looked at it. He did his job, and that was it. The gun did malfunction. So I felt real good about that.
You know, Ramsey, you kept emphasizing that there was no math, but the conclusions that you drew were based upon your knowledge of theory from all your foundation classes, right?
Yes, I knew that the heat transfer from the gun had to go somewhere, right? There's enough heat. There had to be a certain flash point reached for that fuel vapor. I knew the flash point, and I knew what the fire off the gun was, and I knew that if there was a skin there, that there was not enough heat to make that ignition point. There was no physical way for that to happen. I had to have a hole in the aircraft, so that's what led me to look for where's that daggone hole, because I know it's got to be there. I mean, that's the only way it could happen. There's only one solution.
Right. Kind of tying back to what you said earlier, that all that material from those classes, you never know when you're going to have to pull a piece of it, whether that's in your job or not.
That's right. It's fun. It's scary. You can do it.
Thanks, Ramsey. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope it's helped you see what's possible for you as an engineer in your future and the traits that you're going to need to be successful. So good luck on your journey as you develop what you know and who you are.